Well, hello and welcome into the Smart Mortgage Show. Glad to have you on the program today. I'm Ben George with Bill Litton. He is a regional president at Cross Country Mortgage. Got a lot coming up today. Market updates. Rates kind of dropped. Now spiking back up a little bit. We'll get the latest on that with Bill, get his perspective on where rates are headed, and just look at the market overall as we head into September. Also, we're going to be talking about the value of a lender and agent team. Why having a good team can really benefit you. We'll talk about some of those benefits on the show today, and also kind of tying into where rates are right now. There's been a big uptick in new home construction, so we'll talk about your mortgage options in new home construction versus existing homes and whether it's any different at all. We'll talk about that today. Bill, welcome in. Looking forward to chatting with you. How are you?
Hey, Ben. Doing good. Yeah, just enjoying the summer and soaking up this nice warm weather. And, you know, I noticed that the days are getting a little shorter.
Is that time of year? Yeah, unfortunately.
I don't love that. But it is what it is. It happens every year, so we know how to get through it. We do.
Well, looking forward to the show today, and I want to point everybody to the website, smartmortgageshow.com. If you have any questions, start there. We go through a lot of different conversations in terms of mortgage lending, so you might find a little bit of your answers right there through our podcast, but we always encourage you to follow up with Bill. 484-352-4151 is that number. You can also take advantage of a free 15-minute mortgage and loan consultation and kind of get that process started, learn more about Cross Country Mortgage and what they can offer you.
It's time for the market update.
So today we want to look at the market heading into September, Bill. We had a little bit of positive movement in terms of interest rates, kind of pulling back a little bit, but as of this recording, we are back up towards the high we've seen the last year, and really well beyond that, right over 7% again.
Yeah, so as of right now, a 30-year fixed rate mortgage is over 7%, maybe 7.375 is right about where the rates are. So they did come back down to 6.375 about 6 months ago. And, you know, when we look at interest rates and we look at a lot of these forecasts, you know, we were forecasting rates to be lower right now than where they are. And everybody's thought, and when I say everybody, I'm talking about some pretty renowned economists saying that the inflation numbers would start to cool a bit, and they actually have. So that's good news. The Fed's policy, you know, where they have rates, the federal funds rate is, you know, it was at 0 in February of 2022. It's at 5.5%. So it's gone up 5.5% in, you know, a year and a half. And the Fed considers this policy to be restrictive, which is good. They're trying to restrict growth. They're trying to cool things down to you know, slow inflation. And now their stance is more of, well, we don't know that we're going to raise anymore, but we're going to hold here for a while. So the problem though is that there's things that are unforeseen. So, you know, the war in the Ukraine has certainly affected markets. And then the regional bank crisis, if you look at some of the charts and you look at where rates spiked, you can see definite correlation. So I feel like without those two events, we'd be in a better spot, right? Rates would have already come down a bit. But the other thing is that the Fed and a lot of economists thought that the labor market would have cooled by now, and it has not. So our economy is still very strong. And I feel like until there's, you know, a break in the labor market where, you know, the unemployment rate gets a little bit higher due to this restrictive Fed policy, and some of the other, you know, forces that we need to see come into play, we're going to be here for a minute. I feel like we're at an inflection point, like 7. I don't see rates going to 9%.
Okay.
And this is, again, based on a lot of information that we've collected and that we read, based on, you know, economists that, you know, and advisors that we subscribe to. So I feel like we could be here for a little bit. I don't think they're going to 9%. I do think you'll see rates come down in 2024. So we just got to hang on a little bit.
hang on. That's been the story for a lot of people, I think, not just in real estate, but all different aspects of the economy right now. It's just kind of hang on and survive and move forward. But I'm curious kind of what your meetings have been like with people right now. It's just a lot of asking about, hey, what's lying ahead? There's not a lot of supply out there. So, I'm curious kind of what people are asking and kind of where their mind is heading into meetings with you.
So that's a great question. So we're always trying to understand what are the short term, the midterm, the long term goals, both for the house and for their overall financial picture. And we feel like if somebody's buying a house and they feel like they're going to be there for a year, that's a scenario where you really need to have a good reason to do that might be outside of any economic reasons, because you're going to pay closing costs to buy and sell. You may see additional upside that we've seen in this market, but what if the market cools off? And all markets tend to cool off at some point, right? So that's not giving you a lot of runway or time in that house. So if your time horizon is 10 years that you're going to be in the house, it makes sense that, because people are saying, I'm waiting for prices to fall and rates to fall. Well, there have been people that have been waiting a few years for that now, and it's not happened. If you're going to be in the house for a while, you're going to have a chance to refinance. We feel like there's a really good opportunity that you'll be able to refinance. So those are the kind of conversations that we're having. And the other thing too, Ben, is when we talk about interest rates being high, that's not such a great thing in my world, but that does mean that the economy is doing good, that our country is doing good, that the U.S. came out of COVID and the U.S. economically has done better than any other country in the world. So although when it comes to buying houses and mortgage rates, we want the rates to come down, of course, having a very low unemployment rate and lots of job growth and lots of job openings and good pay for all is still a really great thing. So we got to make sure we shed that light on things.
We talked about that discussion about, economically, does it make sense when you're looking at time frame and stuff. I'm curious on the refinance side, because you mentioned the rates dipped down about 6.375, I think is what you said. At what point is it worth considering a refinance? So if you get in a home now, is it worth it if you get locked in at 7.3 to when it falls to 6.3, 7.5 again to lock it in there? Because I'm sure some people are going, oh man, I wish I would have considered that 3 months ago when it happened.
So there's not a set number as far as, if you listen to some of the more popular talk shows or folks, they'll say you have to go down 1% in rate. Well, on a $2 million loan amount, 0.25% would move the needle. On a $50,000 loan amount, 3% might not be enough. So it's all going to be customized towards each individual borrower. How much do they owe? How far are we into the amortization schedule? And then what's the cost of the refi, and what is the time frame to recuperate the money so you get to a break even? So and I've seen this famously with a lot of the, internet lenders. Sorry, guys, I pick on you guys a lot, but I do see this where it's like, hey, you're only going to save $20 a month. Your break even's 10 years from now. Well, most people don't even keep a loan for 10 years. You might not even be in the house in 10 years. If you're there in 10 years with the time value of money, that $20 savings is now $7. And I feel like that's the point where you say, don't do anything. We need a better rate. Don't let anybody tell you to do anything. So what we usually do is we do an analysis. We'll work up a loan estimate. We'll put it all in writing. What are the costs? What are the savings? Look at the whole picture. What are your plans? Hey, we're saving $400 a month, but I'm moving in 6 months. It's not worth it. Don't do anything. And believe it or not, we have these conversations. And I think it's good that people reach out with those questions because they're looking to be proactive and save money where they can. But I think by and large, we look for a break even between 2 to 3 years. If your closing costs are paid back within 2 to 3 years, that's a good number. That could be 0.75% lower rate. That could be 1%. It could be 1.5%. So we need to work out the numbers to your specific scenario, plug it all in, see where it puts us.
But I guess to kind of wrap up this conversation, if it drops 1%, it's worth having a conversation just to run some numbers.
If anybody sees the rates come down 1%, they should absolutely reach out to their mortgage lender to see what can be done. If anything, it's worth the call.
Okay. Might not work out for you at the moment, but it's worth having that conversation. So if you want to have a conversation with Bill or over Cross Country Mortgage, the best thing to do is either to log on, smartmortgageshow.com. Plenty of great resources there for you to help you with that mortgage process. But also, you can call 484-352-4151 for Cross Country Mortgage. All right, Bill, I want to talk to you a little bit today here on the Smart Mortgage Show about the benefits of the lender agent team. We focus on you and your side of things all the time, but you have quite a few relationships with agents and you work hand in hand with them on pretty much every deal and every mortgage that you're working on, right?
Yeah. So I would say 90% of the time we're working with a real estate agent that probably referred us to the buyer or the borrower, and we have a really good working relationship with them. So it's basically, and you've heard this before on the show, there's a theme of, if you were in need of a serious operation, heart surgery, you're going to want a really good heart surgeon. If, God forbid you don't, but if you needed an attorney, you'd want a really competent attorney when you're buying a house. It's the largest asset purchase that you'll ever make in your life, and it's also going to be the largest debt encumbrance that you're ever going to have in your life. For 99.99% of people, you're going to want the right team to help you make the best decisions possible. Ultimately, you're going to make the decisions, but we're going to lead you hopefully to the best decisions. So I work with a lot of really great real estate agents that always put the customer, the buyer, the home buyer's best interest at the top. We do as well. When we do that, we usually, high percentage of the time, we get a really good result and have a really happy customer at the end of the day.
And that's what you're aiming for, right? I mean, that's the goal. It's not just, hey, let's print out a number or a percentage rate for you and, start signing some paperwork. It's about trying to get the best outcome for everyone you work with. So let's talk about some of those benefits then of having a strong team of yourself compared with a good agent and what that can mean. And the first one, you talk about negotiations all the time. How do you two work together to help negotiate on someone's behalf?
It's a great question. So there are, and I don't know the number exactly, but it's somewhere like 100 and some different items in the Pennsylvania real estate contract that are negotiable.
Okay.
Most people don't think about a lot of them.
That's a lot.
So a lot of the realtors that I work with, they're really fantastic real estate agents, and they are looking at all of the ways to negotiate to put their prospective buyer into the best position possible when it comes to making this purchase. And then what we do as the lender side is we get involved and have discussions before we make the offer. How are we going to craft the very best offer possible, right? How are we going to make your offer as competitive as possible, which is also a really big component in today's market?
Yeah, because we just go back a couple of years ago. I mean, just to go out and try to get a home, it felt overwhelming for a lot of people, right? Because you found something you like and you're probably too late, even if it's been on the market for just a couple of days. Obviously, the dynamics have changed a little bit, but how are y'all able to make that offer more aggressive?
Yeah, so basically when somebody, and believe it or not, if somebody's not in love with the house, we might not make an aggressive offer. It is what it is. Sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. But if the buyer is really interested in the home, then what we're going to do is we're going to work together, because one of the big hurdles in most people buying a house is getting the mortgage. So we want to make the mortgage as small a hurdle as possible. So one of the things that we do is we always look to see, can we get an appraisal waiver, meaning that the lender accepts the appraised value 100% without an appraiser even going out to the house. Now, that's a really good thing to do because not all lenders are looking for that. But there is one trick to that is if I get the waiver, somebody else will get it. It actually works out even better if they don't get the waiver, because we can use appraisal gap coverage in many cases, and that most lenders don't know how to do. So we coach up our buyer on exactly how that works and use that as a tool, and that has won many, many offers for us. The other thing is closing quickly, or going in with cash but still bringing a mortgage to the table, which you're allowed to do. And the Pennsylvania real estate contract stipulates that the seller has to let an appraiser in if an appraisal is needed. So there's a lot of different ways. Those are just a few that we're working on the behalf of the buyer to make their offer really strong.
When those things happen, is it the agent coming to you and saying, hey, so Bill, this is going to be a tough purchase for us. We got a lot of competition. What are some different things we can get creative on? And then you're able to bring that to the table. Is that kind of how that conversation works? Because I'm sure as a buyer, I would have any idea, right? I wouldn't know kind of what to say there. So I'm assuming that's kind of what you mean by that team, is y'all are communicating with each other.
Yeah. So really what's happening is we're in constant communication, myself and the real estate agents that I work with. And when we're getting ready to craft a contract, we're talking about the specifics. And the real estate agent is going to bring to the table the current market tactics that are being used, right? Because in a different market, you're going to use very different tactics than what you're using today. And some of them carry into any market, okay? But they're going to mention the things that are really working to help be aggressive in this market. Like, unfortunately, no home inspections. A lot of people are waiving the home inspection. A lot of people are waiving the appraisal contingency, which means if it doesn't appraise, they'll bring the difference in cash. So, and then on the lender side, they'll ask me, hey, what do you see? Can we make an offer without a contingency? Do they need another lender told them they have to sell first? Do they have to sell first? I love that one, because a lot of times we can be creative and figure out a way that they don't need to sell. And now there's the most, prohibitive contingency is a sale of house contingency. That one gets laughed off the table these days. So if we can remove that, we're already putting our buyer in a much better spot.
How long have you been doing this, Bill?
21 years.
21 years. So you have a few relationships in the community, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's kind of the next thing, right? Is having someone that's been around, that knows the community, is well regarded. It can benefit you quite a bit, right?
100%. So what I would say is a lot of times when the selling agent, the listing agent, if they see a pre-approval from an unknown lender or even a national lender that's known to just not close on time or not close at all, I've seen where they just will disallow that pre-approval. Okay. Since I've been, fortunate enough to do this in this area for the past 21 years, I know a lot of the agents. So when my offer goes over, they know exactly who I am, and they know that we don't send a pre-approval out unless we're 100% sure we can get it closed. So they're guaranteed that if they work with us, we will get this to settlement outside of any kind of like extenuating strange circumstance, like a title issue or something that we, could not have foreseen. Termites are revealed to have eaten the structure of the home. We obviously don't control that, but when it comes to, and that stuff's rare. And when it comes to anything that has to do with the mortgage, we have two rules. Never pre-approve somebody that you can't get to the table, and never turn somebody down that you can get to the table.
I like those two rules. All right, Bill, last thing, availability, right? This is another benefit of having a good team. Is someone that's going to be there when you have questions, because questions are going to come up all the time. And if you've been through this process before at all, you realize there's a lot of anxiety during the process, and you got a lot of questions, and hey, is this going to work out? What can we do to improve things? Like, having someone that's available can not only benefit you, but just ease a lot of that tension.
So availability is really big because, well, number one, people work and they usually make offers and see houses when most people are not, when they're off work, right? So it's a lot of this stuff takes place off hours, and we're available till about 9 p.m. Monday through Friday and 11 to 7 Saturday and Sunday. I we're closed on Christmas and New Year's, but I have gotten calls before and we've been able to help. So we are very available because we know these things don't take place always 9 to 5. Mm-hmm. And if there's a hot house and there's multiple offers and we want to get in on that, we've got to be available to allow our buyer to be in on that.
Well, we're not going to give out your cell phone number here on the show, Bill. You got to actually sit down and work with Bill to maybe get access to that. But if you do want to begin that process or just learn more about Bill and the team at Cross Country Mortgage, you can do so. 484-352-4151. And again, been serving that Chadds Ford community for over 20 years. And Bill, just kind of wrap this up. And when people probably say, okay, have the right agent and lender team, well, how much control as a buyer do I have of that, right? Because I'm sure I'm going to talk to my agent or pick out my agent I'm working with, and they're going to say, oh, well, Bill Litton, he's someone I've worked with a lot. I trust a lot. So is that really in my control, or is it just, finding the right agent that leads me to you? Or what can we do to make sure we have this right team, I guess, is what I'm ultimately asking.
That's a really great question. So what I would say is a lot of times it's a referral from a friend or a family member who had a really great experience. I would also say that to some degree, reviews online can be really helpful. The other thing, though, is when, this is, again, the largest purchase you're ever going to make in your life. And when you talk to that lender or that real estate agent, you should have a list of questions. They should be happy to answer them. They shouldn't be off-put by it. You want to know that they understand the area that you're buying or selling in. Also that you want to know that, from a lending standpoint, what is their feeling on the market and where things are going, and how are they going to help you through this high interest rate environment that we're in? So I would ask questions that are important to you and make sure you feel comfortable with the answers. And if you don't, it's worth it to keep looking around until you find somebody that you're comfortable with.
Awesome. Again, you can call 484-352-4151. And if you want to just jump into the application process, if you're that far along, you're kind of ready to take that next step, you can just hit the Get Started button. But also Cross Country takes a very consultative approach to this process and helping you get into a mortgage. So if that's the path you prefer, they'll have that for you. But again, smartmortgageshow.com is the website. Phone number 484-352-4151.
It's time for the Mortgage Mailbag.
All right, Bill, I want to talk to you a little bit about home buying right now, the market that we're in. We've mentioned rates are up over 7% as we go into September. And I saw something the other day about new home construction because there's such a lack of supply that's out there that can't keep up with the needs right now in the country. New home construction is up. I think it was like 16% or something like that. And I think projections will only kind of continue in this current environment. So the question I wanted to run by you today, is there anything different in the mortgage lending process for new home construction versus an existing home?
Yeah. So if you're going to buy a new construction home where the builder has financed the construction portion, because there are construction loans, that's a whole different subject than we're approaching here. But if it's a new construction property, the biggest element to that is understanding the delivery date, right? So some of them are quick delivery. In that situation, if there's a house that's, ready to go, close in 30 to 60 days, there's not much different on the lending side. What becomes different when you're over 60 days, and sometimes they can be out 8, 9, 10 months, it's your interest rate lock. Are you going to pay today to lock in the rate all the way out 1 year? Or are you going to ride the market and see where the market takes you? So definitely some considerations with where do we think rates are going? Should we lock in now or should we play the market? That's the biggest consideration with new construction.
Say a harder process for the person trying to secure the loan in terms of I've never been through the new home construction process, so I'm not totally sure, but you have to get all the estimates, get all the projections and costs. Is it just more legwork in terms of getting all that stuff lined up versus, hey, I know this house is $500,000 I want to buy. That's the mortgage I'm looking for. That's the amount I'm looking for. We can go ahead and go that route and push forward, or is it a little bit more difficult?
It definitely is more involved.
Okay.
Picking out all
Good
your
work.
options and your colors, and you're definitely more involved because there's so many more choices. There's a little bit of an extra cost on the appraisal because the appraiser could go out to a piece of raw land and take the plans and specs and just appraise it to those plans and specs. And then once the house is complete, have to re-inspect. So that's an extra $200 to go out for the appraiser to go out to the house twice versus once. So there's a little bit more to it. What a lot of people like about it right now is that there's not as much of a bidding war on that side because you don't have multiple people going after the same house in new construction. It's not a bidding war environment. Somebody comes in, they put a deposit down on a lot. If there's somebody already has a deposit on a lot, it's just not available, right? Whereas the way that existing construction works is it creates an environment to bid the value of the property value up. That doesn't happen in new construction.
And so anybody that wants to come in and is thinking about building a new home and going that process, they're going that route, do they need to bring anything different to you? Anything they should be thinking about ahead of time before they sit down with Cross Country Mortgage for the first time?
No, I would say that the pre-approval process is almost the same. I will tell you one little thing that's important that we've learned over the years is that you don't want to send out the appraiser until the buyer has picked out all of their options and we have a final purchase price. Because let's say the final purchase price is $500,000, but we have an initial base purchase price before the options of $400,000. If I send the appraiser out there with a contract that says $400,000, he's going to come back with an appraisal close to $400,000. And usually these things are, you've got really good real estate agents. They know the values, in the surrounding area. So if that buyer then adds a bunch of options, of course, the value of the property goes up. We want to make sure that we've captured all that in the contract that the appraiser sees and that they get the right contract in hand. Because if we don't, the purchase price is not going to match the appraised value, and it is going to cause completely unnecessary issues.
All right, so not a big difference then. So for somebody that's going that route, if you have questions and want to follow up with Bill, anything on your mind specifically, or want to start talking about that new home that you're looking to build, you can always do so. 484-352-4151, or just log on, as always, smartmortgageshow.com. Some tools, resources there for you. All of our podcasts are there, video content as well. You can find it there. So it's kind of the home for everything that Bill and his team produce. Great source if you're looking just to learn more about the process, both for what's expected of you, but also what Bill and his team at Cross Country can provide. All right, Bill, we'll close it out on that note. As always, a pleasure to catch up with you. Hopefully next month we'll be talking. Rates will be coming back down a little bit more, but just continue to survive. Whoever's watching and you're in that market for a new home and just wonder if it's going to happen. Patience, it probably will at some point, but we'll get through it until then. So, Bill, always appreciate your time and your help over Cross Country Mortgage.
Thank you so much, Ben, and we'll see you next month.
This program is for informational purposes only. Please consult a qualified professional before taking any action. Bill Litton is a loan advisor and regional president with Cross Country Mortgage, NMLS number 147060.